Democrats need judges like fish need water. Democrats understand that they won't win elections and their ideas don't last long. When they do get power, they ramrod some insane policies through that sometimes take years to unwind. Like Obamacare, for instance. Obamacare was one of the least popular things ever passed by Democrats when they had control. But they got it through by a whisker with the help of some flip-flopping Republicans, by the way, in a snowstorm on Christmas Eve. It was codified into law, and the Democrats lost power for a decade because of it. But they were that committed to it. Because that's what Democrats do. When they do win elections, they go big. They shoot for the moon. They think huge, and they take opportunities to go big, like Obamacare. We can't get rid of that thing to this day. Has it made health insurance or health care cheaper? Nah, it hasn't. But it hijacked the marketplace. It attacked the private sector, so that did its job, and I'm sure it lined the pockets of who knows who. And we still can't get it undone. And with the help of a Supreme Court justice named John Roberts, it was mandatory that we all have to purchase it now. Because it's a tax, you see. So not only do they shoot big and come up with cockamamie theories to codify into law when they are in control, they have some help from Republicans and supposedly conservative justices. It's a very frustrating thing. And so then they're thrown out into the wilderness for a decade because they're insane and nobody wants anything to do with them. Like, for instance, nobody believes men should be using women's locker rooms. They do. They're committed to that. They're committed to men being women. They're committed to men being in women's private spaces in this country. I don't know why. They're dying on that hill. They are committed to that. Nobody wants that. The country rejects it. 80-20 issues. They want the border wide open. Nobody wants that. They do. I don't know why, but they do. And so they try hard when they're in power to open the doors to the border, force men into women's locker rooms. Wild, bananas stuff. And then the electorate tosses them out every 4 years. And when a guy like Trump comes along in particular, it gets everybody excited. All right, there is a new way. Okay, so now, Republicans are in total control. What are we doing with it? Ed, what the hell are we doing with it today, huh? Republicans are in total control. What are we doing? I know what Trump's doing. Trump's burning the candle at both ends. He's signing executive orders right and left. I know what Elon's doing. He's got 130 days. He's coming to the end of it in May with his team at Doge. He's getting to the bottom of waste, fraud, and abuse right and left. What the hell are congressional Republicans doing? I got a couple of stories in front of me today. I know what they're doing. They're fighting amongst themselves. They're preening and puffing up and trying to score points for themselves out of vanity. They're getting into these little slap fights like it's Nerd TMZ. And a bunch of conservative commentators on social media are now taking up arms on behalf of their favorite member of the House or whatever, like that matters at all. The people's business? Nah, that's not being tended to. The Republicans are getting into slap fights with each other, preening and puffing up, taking principled stands. What are Democrats doing? They're winning judicial elections so that if they can't ramrod their insane policies through Congress, they'll just get judges to do it for them instead. Democrats don't stop. They wake up every day trying to figure out how to assault the country. And sadly, we have several Republicans that are willing to help them, even when they're not in control. And then when Republicans do have complete control, and a guy like Donald Trump has done the hard work, walked through the fire, escaped literal death, the invasion of his home, political persecution, legal persecution. He became president. He's busted his ass to get to where he is. He's doing all the heavy lifting. And what thanks does he get? Well, I tell you what, I could start naming names, Ed. I could start naming names this morning. My temptation to name names is high. I'm not going to do it, but my temptation is high, Ed.
But it's got to be coming soon, man. We can't. You can't have that restraint for another 2 weeks, I would say. Like if the Republicans don't do anything, you know what I mean?
Hey, Lisa Murkowski was very impressed by Cory Booker's 24-hour speech. Did you hear that? Lisa Murkowski of Alaska is very impressed by him, congratulating her Senate colleague Cory Booker on setting a new record for longest Senate floor speech on Tuesday. Whether you agree with him or not, the past 24 hours, said Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski, was what most people think a filibuster actually looks like. Oh, well, that's very nice, Lisa. How nice. So what, you're commending Senator Booker for his Mr. Smith Goes to Washington routine? We're supposed to be inspired because he engaged in theatrics the way old Jimmy Stewart did in a Frank Capra film. So, Lisa says, congratulations, Senator Booker, on making us look great. This is what people imagine the Senate to be. 24-hour theatrics before we heroically collapse on the Senate floor. Tired, raspy, from trembling, like Jimmy Stewart with the trembling paper before he collapsed. And the gallery howls. They're so in love with themselves. These Republicans are so in love with themselves. It's all vanity. It's all vanity. So much of the Republican Party is not there to actually do the work of you and me. They're there in a vanity play. They're there to fundraise. They're there to get social media, and there's some people that have some rather large social media followings who have started their little fan clubs for these individual members of the House. Again, like it's nerd TMZ. I don't celebrify these people, folks. I used to. I'll confess, when I was very immature, like many of these little twerps in social media now that think Congress is as Rush used to call it, Hollywood for ugly people. They're so enamored with being invited to Mar-a-Lago and the parties, and they just love being part of the scene. There's nothing that excites them more than a congressman or a congresswoman calling them to a fundraiser, inviting them to speak, or asking them to the office. They love to walk around the Capitol building and be invited to things and feel like they're part of the discussion. These conservative influencer types, I don't want to name names, but I'd sure love to. In many cases, they have millions of followers. And they start to take up arms on behalf of their favorite House member for being principled. Right. While Democrats are winning judicial elections and just running roughshod over the country and stopping Trump at every turn, congressional Republicans doing nothing to help Trump at all. Nothing. And we've got supposed influencers and conservative media types that are throwing in with slap fights between House members. Did you hear this one yesterday? And I'm not going to name names, but let's just address this broadly. Apparently, there are 9 Republicans who think it is worth grinding everything to a halt to make sure new parents can vote by proxy in the House of Representatives. Now, there are a lot of you that have no idea what I'm talking about right now. I understand that because you'd be normal, much like we were just talking about a minute ago. People who are leading their lives and working and assume that the Republican Party and Trump just won in a mandate and they're going to go fix some things. You'd assume? That's what I'd assume. I think that's a safe assumption. The Republicans were elected to fix some things, stop some things, right? So, let me explain what happened yesterday. There were some very well-intentioned Republicans that decided it was worth grinding Congress to a halt over the issue of proxy voting. What does that mean? First of all, it's in the Constitution. It's not allowed. That's important to note. But setting it aside for a minute, let's pretend it's up for discussion and not in the Constitution. Proxy voting means that if a member of Congress can't be there to vote in person, they can tell somebody else to vote for them. Now, Fast Eddie, let's just talk about that for a minute. How does that sit with you as an American citizen? There are 435 members of the House of Representatives, and for whatever reason, he or she cannot be there to vote in person. Do you feel good about them saying, hey, can't make it to vote today. Do you mind casting my vote for me this way? How do you feel about that?
Don't like it.
Why? I mean, let's just take the Constitution out of it for a minute, by the way. Hard to do, but let's pretend. Why don't you like that, just on principle?
Well, one, you're not the person that I elected to make that vote, one. And two, what are we voting on? We should be voting on important things that might affect the lives of me and my family. So, yeah, no, I don't like that at all.
Okay. And so here's what they'll say. Oh, no, you're misrepresenting it, Stigall. It's not just proxy voting for the sake of proxy voting. Wink. It's new parents. It's women in Congress who have just had a new baby. And we must allow them, as a pro-family party, we must allow them time to stay home with their baby and hand their vote over to another member of the House to vote for them. And there were some fellas that agreed too. And so some fellas were included on that too. So in other words, if you're a male or a female and you have a new baby at home, you get to call up a member of the House in their proposal and proxy vote for you while you're home with the new baby. Fast Eddie, what are you, anti-family or something out there? What's your problem? What do you hate people with babies? I thought we were the pro-family party.
Well, I have to assume, Chris, if you're a member of Congress, then you already have money. So can't that be the, I guess, the dad in this case to take care of the kid while you're voting in person, right?
Yeah. Proxy voting's a disaster. Just as working from home is a disaster. And I assure you that what this would become, I know everybody's masking it as, no, this is just the right thing to do for families. Right. I know what this would become. This would become 435 members of the House in no time flat, literally phoning in their vote and not showing up for work. Congress would turn into Zoom meetings, Fast Eddie, full time. Make book on it. That's what it would become. And so there were 9 Republicans yesterday that ground proceedings to a halt. So no SAVE Act, no codification of any of the Doge finding, no judicial dealing with the judiciary weaponizing itself against the Trump administration. We're not going to deal with any of that. Now, these 9 claim that Mike Johnson is lying and misrepresenting and saying, no, that's not true. We can still do that. Mike Johnson is just throwing a hissy fit to try to stop us from bringing up proxy voting. Okay, fine. I'll hear it. So Mike Johnson and some House Republicans were trying to bully these 9 out of this stupid proxy vote position and said, if you do this, we're going to make you the villains and we're going to shut this whole thing down for the week. So that's what they did. So what we have is a big slap fight between Republicans, preening for one another, and their pals in social media, but not getting the business of the people done for another week. Congratulations, Republicans.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.